There's Smokey and Holly. And Smokey was diagnosed with prostate cancer Tuesday the 7th. It's now about a week later. And I'm just going to describe everything that's happened so far for other people who are going through this in case it might be helpful. And let me acknowledge before I get into anything else that I have a ton of privilege, not just because Smokey has insurance, so we can afford to do these really expensive treatments, but also just that amazing medical care is available in my area. I'm in the San Diego area, and I just feel like we've been really lucky with who we've ended up with. So I want to apologize in advance if I'm talking about things that are too expensive, inaccessible. Hopefully this is helpful to someone. So the first is what happened. So I had taken Smokey to the vet in August because he seemed like he was going out earlier to pee in the morning than normal. He's normally a late sleeper, and it seemed like he was kind of struggling to get it out. Like it was a smaller stream, if that makes sense, and he would have to try and pee like a couple of times. So I had no suspicion of cancer at this time. I was laser focused on stones, like kidney stones or bladder stones. And so we took him to the vet. I specifically asked for an x-ray because, again, I was laser focused on stones. So they did just like a physical exam. The doc checked his prostate, which is probably an unpleasant procedure if you're familiar with it, but it felt smooth and normal to the doctor, and the x-ray didn't show anything at that time. Actually, after this visit, I completely convinced myself that I was wrong, and it was just like the pee was just like soaking into the ground, and that's why it didn't look like he could get the pee out, and that I had taken him to the vet for nothing, and I actually felt really silly. He also seemed to stop waking up early in the morning, so this went completely off my radar. However, Smokey had also had some abnormal lab values. Like he had a alkaline phosphatase and I think an ALT that had been slowly climbing for several years and had gone to the point where the doctor was trying to rule out Cushing's. And so anyway, long story short, the doctor did an ultrasound for this reason and just found prostate cancer. So we weren't expecting it. We weren't looking for it. They just found it. And so I just want to explain briefly what that process was like, because I did get the report from the doctor, and so there's a whole bunch of information. The stuff about his adrenals is like what they were originally looking for with the Cushing's, and then there's a mucosal nodule in the apical bladder, and the prostate has changes which are nearly pathognomic for prostate carcinoma. And what my vet explained is that from what they saw and the way it looked, it was almost guaranteed that he had prostate cancer, but it's not an official diagnosis without either a biopsy or a BRAF test, which I'll get into when I get to that point in the story. Okay, so this is what happened. A brief note about just the emotional side of things. It's what you would imagine, right? It's like being hit with a bus if you're really attached to your dog, like I am, and probably you are if you're watching something like this. So my advice with the emotional side of things is just roll with it. So I think we all kind of have our coping style. For me, it's like controlling every detail and over analyzing everything, and I actually feel like leaning into that like helped. So the first probably 2 days, like I would just randomly cry, and then I would go into research mode and just read as much as I could. And then I also, and this really surprised me, had moments of like happiness and laughter, and I found myself almost like trying to suppress that and being like, something terrible has just happened. But I decided like, no, like if you have your moments of happiness, like have your moments of happiness. I think it helps like power you through everything that you're gonna need to decide and read up on and all this. So whatever your like trauma style or whatever you are normally like in emergencies, lean into that. So if you're someone who needs to like hide and burrow and like watch TV for 3 days, like do that. If you're someone like me who needs to go 200 miles an hour and do stuff, then do that. Like Smokey for some time had been having a little more trouble jumping up on like my little couch in the greenhouse, and I built him steps. And I mean, that sounds so silly to talk about, but it was like coping wise the best like the best thing that happened in the first few days, because it gave me something to think about, and I felt like I had control over something, just making this one little aspect of his life comfortable. Check them out, see if they work. Oh yeah, good boy. And so it was surprisingly therapeutic, and yeah, I just leaned into that. I made him like a little cave. See it? Like I built this like big table and threw a blanket over it just so he'd have somewhere in the dark and be comfortable if he felt like it, which he hasn't really been interested in doing, but his sister Holly loves it. So win, I guess. But mostly these things just kept me busy and made me feel like I was doing something and not just sitting around worrying and like eating my heart out. This video is already going to be so long. Okay. But the next step, so my regular vet, like my community vet, said that the oncologist won't see you until you have a definite diagnosis of cancer and what kind it is. I'm not actually sure that's true, because when I called to make the appointment with the oncologist, they didn't actually ask for any kind of verification. So I think I would have been okay. But it's still probably most efficient to go to, they told me to go to an internal medicine doctor at like an actual veterinary hospital. And this can be confusing because so many small vet practices have hospital in their name, but something like a VCA hospital. And you can ask them on the phone, like, do they do the BRAF test? So I'm actually not sure if you can do the BRAF test for every single type of prostate cancer. Smokey has transitional cell carcinoma. The other type, which people often just call prostate cancer, is adenocarcinoma. I think they're treated pretty much the same way. I don't know if the BRAF test can be done for the adenocarcinoma, but anyway, for Smokey's type, what he needed was this BRAF test, this urine test. So you could ask on the phone whether whoever you're calling can do a BRAF test. I don't recommend getting a fine needle aspiration or a biopsy. My oncologist specifically said this can seed the cancer. This can cause metastasis from the prostate, the bladder, wherever it is now, to other places in the body, which you absolutely do not want. So if you're seeing like a small town vet kind of thing, and they suggest this, try not to. Try to go to an internal medicine vet at a big hospital and get the BRAF urine test, because that's much safer for them. And it's really accurate in diagnosing the cancer. It doesn't sound like it would be. I don't know how it works, but there's something in the urine and it tells them, what kind of cancer it is. Okay. A note on that is make sure you bring your dog in hydrated, because if your dog especially is already having urinary symptoms like my dog was, and they weirdly got worse like just the week before we found that out. I actually thought it was my other dog peeing in the garage, because she sometimes does that when the weather's bad. But it turned out to be him. He was peeing frequent small amounts where he couldn't seem to get it all out at once, and it felt weird and yada yada. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is try to bring your dog hydrated to that internal medicine appointment. And as long as your dog doesn't have kidney problems or anything, if so, double check with your vet. But what I recommend is water with a little bit of chicken broth in it. It sounds dumb. You don't even need that much chicken broth. They slurp it up. So if you can do that before you go to the vet, you have a better chance of them they need a good couple ounces of pee. And if you have a very small dog, they're going to send you home and have you just collect each pee. And you have to put it in this little cup right at within 10 minutes of them peeing, and then don't put it in the fridge, but they'll tell you all that. But it's a whole process, and then it delays it a little bit because you got to get the pee, you got to bring the sample back. And so we had been really hoping to get it all done while we were there, because I was super, super anxious to know what's going on, and also just wanted to minimize the amount of discomfort he was in. And I didn't know how successfully we'd be able to catch his pee, because he's 1 centimeter off the ground when he pees. He's a very low to the ground dog, and he squats all the way down when he pees. We ended up using I got a dustpan, but I kind of cut it up so it was as small as possible. And then I bolted on this just small square Tupperware type thing. It was actually one of those square office trays from Dollar Tree. You probably know what I'm talking about if you're a Dollar Tree shopper, because they always have these in stock. So bolted that on, and then as Smokey would squat down to pee, my husband would just like lift Smokey and like plunk him over this dustpan. It actually worked really well for us. But like we did have to come home and collect multiple pees and then go back to the hospital to drop off the pee to get enough pee to do the sample. So that's why I recommend just making sure your dog is as hydrated as possible, and maybe don't give them a chance to pee like right outside the office on your way in, but come in like, you know, ready to go. So you have a better chance of just getting it done. They did catheterize Smokey, which I think caused, well, they did it multiple times because we were trying to get enough pee, but I do think it caused irritation for the day or two, or maybe even 3 afterward. So I just want to put that out there. So if you come home from your BRAF test and your dog seems much worse, don't think like, oh my God, the cancer has invaded every cell in their body and like they can't pee. They may just be really inflamed from that like irritation from the catheter. So that lasted about 2 to 3 days. The first day after, he peed in the garage like 6 times, and I was like, oh my, you know, I was really worried. So that like intensity seems to have gone away. So just, yeah, be aware that may happen. What the doctor recommended is just to make sure he's peeing. So if they go 24 hours without peeing, you need to go to the emergency room. You may need, you know, either a catheter or a stent or both, because it's really dangerous. The bladder, I think, can actually explode if they can't get the pee out. So that's what he told me to watch out for. So the frequency is not necessarily an emergency room visit, but not passing urine is. And then the other main thing with the internal medicine doctor was, well, you know, let me show you. I'll show the test. Okay, so there, I guess, are 2 components, the BRAF and the BRAF plus. The BRAF checks whether they have, I think, the genetic mutation that can lead to the transition cell carcinoma, which is also called urothelial carcinoma, but that term's more used in humans and TCC is more used in dogs. Okay, but they also sent the BRAF plus, and this is where we got the definite confirmation. So it says detection of both these additional genomic signatures is compatible with the presence of a canine TCC/UC. So this is the definite diagnosis of his transitional cell carcinoma. Okay, so the other big thing from the internal medicine doctor is that he was able to start Smokey on piroxicam. And this is another thing that like a small town vet may not know about, or may not have a relationship with a compounding pharmacy. Well, they probably would, but may not know about, may not be able to prescribe the piroxicam. Piroxicam is an NSAID, like when we take Advil or Aleve as humans, but it has like actual anti-tumor properties. So it both like slows down the spread, reduces the chance of metastasis, and as the oncologist later explained, reduces inflammation. So he said that the piroxicam can actually improve symptoms, which is really cool. It's just an NSAID. It's not like, well, it's more expensive if you have to go to a compounding pharmacy for a little dog, but if you have a bigger dog and you can take a standard dose, it's probably not very expensive, but it's like pretty safe. So he was able to start Smokey on that even before we got in with the oncologist, which actually only took a few days. I also at this time started Smokey on melatonin. Like I said, I had started researching a lot, and there are a million substances, or a million supplements, but it doesn't seem like most of them have any solid research behind them. But the one that I was totally sold on was melatonin, which is crazy. But in both humans and animals, it's been shown to improve cancer outcomes. Low levels of melatonin have shown to be predictive of poor outcome, like just natural endogenous low levels of melatonin are predictive of poor outcome, and supplementation improves outcome more for some cancers than others, but even up to like 30 or 50% better survival, which is an insane response for something over the counter and cheap. And I'm gonna tell you the dosing that I found. 1 second. Okay, so I had read on PubMed and in academic journals about the response in humans and animals. I'm not sure I found something specific to dogs. Definitely humans and definitely rats, which the combination of which was enough for me. This is Dog Cancer Blog. This is written by a vet, and the dose they recommend is 1 to 2 milligrams per 40 pounds of body weight, or for a dog who's more severely ill and further in their disease progression, 5 milligrams per 40 pounds. Smokey is 25.3 pounds or 11.5 kilograms, and he's taking a 1 milligram gummy, and I just shove it in a piece of steak every night. I'll show you the brand I'm using because I did check the ingredients to make sure they were safe, but there are probably other brands that would work too. Okay, here's the one Smokey's taking. And yeah, the steak just makes it fun. So I cubed up pieces of sirloin and just seared them rare, and then I took scissors and cut like an X, like choo, choo, into it, and then I just shoved the gummy in there. Your dog may be happy to take the gummies without that, but Smokey was still kind of sedated, and I knew I wanted to start him on it that first day, so I just got in the steak habit. Okay, and that should be it. As far as what happened in like those first few days, and then in the second video I'll start with the oncologist and everything. Look how many toys you got. You're gonna become a frisbee dog. But wait, there's more. Look at these. Here, let Mom open the plastic. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the camera to focus. Okay, there we go. Here you go. Here you go. Oh, what's in there? What's in there?